Welcome to another edition of the Red Zone podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Point du jour, and today we're going to be talking about something that happened maybe a week ago, a week and a half ago. Some articles came out, former Stampeder players now on the Toronto Argonauts who just won the Grey Cup, speaking out on the demise of the Stampeders over the last 2 years and citing to a lot of stuff facilities, training, staff, food, even. And a lot of it was around Dave Dickinson, of a lot of what Kadeem Carey said. And I wanted to address that because I think there was pillars, and there was pillars that were with this organization that were holding strong for so many years that led to the 18-year playoff streak. And a lot of those pillars started to break down, and we tried to hold them together with, string, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work, and it's where we are right now. And that is a 5-12-1 team that just hit rock bottom. And today, I kind of want to talk about those pillars and possibly about creating a new culture for the Stampeders. And I think there's sun ahead. I mean, I know it was dark days the last 2 years, but I think there's sunny days, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But I want to start with what happened over the last few years to get us to this point of where we kind of hit rock bottom. And I'm going to start in 2022, where Bo Levi Mitchell got benched for Jake Mayer. And the thinking was like, we need a spark. Bo Levi was not the same player. And I think a lot of people saw that with watching games. He overthrew passes, he threw a lot of interceptions. And, a lot of this was due to injuries that he sustained over the last few years. He had the shoulder injury and then he had the knee injury. He was just not the same as MOP Bo Levi Mitchell. So he got benched. Little did we know that was going to be his last start of with the Stampeders, basically, and that Jake Mayer was now the man in Calgary, and he did pretty well. He, led us to a 12-6 record, and well, not a 12-6 record, but to a lot of wins down the stretch there. I don't know how many, but it was pretty good. He was efficient. He was, leading us down the field, ending drives with touchdowns. It was just looking well, with the running game being the identity of the team. Not Jake having to throw 40 to 50 passes a game. The running game was there. Kadeem Carey led the league in rushing yards, and everything was going right. 12-win team going into the playoffs with Jake Mayer. He got extended, actually. I think it's September, October. That would, basically say he's the guy. He's the man without saying that, but he was the guy. And going into that playoff game in 22 against the BC Lions, against Nathan Rourke, that was the year he had his incredible half of the season, and he got injured. We all know what happened. He came back for the playoff game. Jake Mayer struggled, though, in that game to keep up. Nathan Rourke was just completing passes at a very efficient rate, like we saw earlier that year. And the receivers, mainly Keon Hatcher, was just catching literally everything. And also with Brian Burnham. I mean, that guy just, he can catch everything. And we lost that playoff game. Bo ended the game because Jake Mayer was really struggling. We couldn't get anything going. But there was optimism that in 2023 things would turn around with Mayer at the helm. They traded Bo Levi Mitchell to the Hamilton Tiger Cats in exchange for a lot of draft picks, and Dave Dickinson became GM of the team, assuming both roles. Hufnagel went to president, only president, and then a year later he went to an advisory role while Jay McNeil took that president role. And going back to the pillars I was talking about and the cracks in the pillars, Bo Levi Mitchell was one of the pillars. And why say that? Well, Bo was here for, I think, 10 years. He spent 10 years here. All of his CFL career up to that point was in Calgary. So he saw all the success, and that's all he knew here was just the success, the winning seasons, the playoff streak, the Grey Cup appearances, the Grey Cup wins. That's what he knew. And after he left after the 2022 season, we saw Jake struggle immensely in the 2023 season. And I think you could maybe point to Bo being out of the building, Bo being out of that, the McMahon Stadium, out of Calgary, really affected a lot of players in that locker room. It wasn't the same vibe as when he was here and when he was the leader and, he was the tone setter for the team and everything was kind of running through him. And then he left, and I think there was just a lot of like, whoa, he's gone. And it wasn't the same after that. Something got lost. And also with Huff stepping away after the 2023 season, going into advisory role, it seemed like all these pillars started to have cracks in them. And you get to a lot of former players, and I can go on and on and on. This list extends very largely. You got Deshaun Amos, you got Falarin Orimilade, you got Jameer Thurman, you got Eric Rogers, you got Davaris Daniels. I could go on and on and on. Winton McManus, but he went down to the NFL and came back, so it's a different story. But you had a lot of these players leave, and due to, maybe not enough money or, they're trying to lowball them, whatever the case may have been, they left the team because the Stampeders just weren't going to pay them and they stuck to their same old way, which was just going out there, recruiting these guys from the States up here to Calgary and them becoming stars in the making. Well, that didn't happen. It got lost. Everything got lost in that, and there wasn't a success rate like we had back in the day with like bringing up Charleston Hughes, him becoming a star, bringing up Micah Johnson, him becoming a star. There just wasn't that, and I don't know, like that's part of the pillars that got lost, and players left, new players came in, and really the culture just wasn't there anymore. The pillars started breaking, and now we talk about the change here. And that was the word of the offseason with Jay McNeil, with Dave Dickinson. We got to change some stuff because it is not working over the last 2 years. 11 wins is not going to cut it, and it's not the standard that the Stampeders had for so long. And I'm not saying that this was going to continue to a 30-year playoff streak, or I knew this was going to end at some point, but it ended so badly. I mean, it really hit rock bottom. I mean, this past year, you had players kind of fighting in the locker room after losing a bunch of games in a row. I mean, after that Saskatchewan loss, and I won't even go into that because I don't want to, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of stuff, we just went downhill so rapidly, and something needed to change. And that's where the word culture comes into this. And we need a new culture. We need that new leadership in the room that when Bo left, wasn't there anymore. And that's where Vernon Adams Jr. comes in, because around the league and players around the league, coaches around the league, they say the same exact thing. This guy is a leader. This guy, players just love him. He's probably the most likable guy in the CFL. I mean, there's probably a lot of them, but he is one of them that everybody talks about. BC players saying we just rallied around him. Rick Campbell, the head coach, we're not going to trade him. Last year when they brought back Nathan Rourke, we're not going to trade him because he means so much to this team. He's such a strong voice he's a big reason for where we are right now, that we don't want to trade him and lose, that voice in the locker room. So they kept him. It didn't go, right in the second back half of the year with Nathan Rourke starting, but you could see there was that difference when Vernon Adams was the guy and then Nathan Rourke stepped in and, starting games and all that. There was a difference. And Vernon Adams Jr. now coming to Calgary, he talked about culture, creating a new culture for the Stampeders, getting back to where we were a couple years ago. And it's kind of like the Patriots, right? The Patriots, for so long, they had Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the motto was do your job, right? Do your job. And they stuck with this for 20 years, and it was working, it was working, it was working. And then kind of a small breaks in the foundation started happening with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, that relationship. And then Tom Brady left to go to the Buccaneers, maybe trying to prove a point, went to Tampa, won the Super Bowl his first year with the Patriots. Now it was just Bill Belichick, and it wasn't the same. They lost something, and they lost Tom Brady, who proved that, hey, I wasn't just a part of a system, I don't have to be just a part of the system. I can go to a different team and win. Watch me do so. And he did. And he's the ultimate winner in sports, really. So it was kind of like that. And then after Bill Belichick, once they fired him, they went with Gerard Mayo. And you saw that they removed the motto of do your job with the new one. I forget what it is. But now it's just a new culture. They're trying to set that new culture with that team. And that's the same exact thing with the Stampeders. We went a long time with the same motto, with the same mentality when it comes to, recruiting players or when it comes to free agency. We just need to change. And I think Vernon Adams Jr. is a big step on us doing just that. And he'll be a big voice in the locker room. Now, can he fill Bo Levi Mitchell's shoes? I don't know. But it's worth testing it out and seeing what he can do to this team so we can get back up to where we were. But it's not just one piece that does that. I think we still have to fill out the rest of the roster and see what players we can bring in to really help set a new culture for the Stampeders and see where it goes in 2025. But that will do it for this episode of the Red Zone podcast. Let me know what you think about this whole article, that came out with Kadeem Carey and the players. A lot of it is kind of sadly true. And I just think that a new culture can really set the future of this organization and get us back to our winning ways. Because I think the old mentality it was not working anymore. And you could see it over the last 2 years. So, yeah, let me know what you thought about all of this article that came out. And the Stampeders can get back to where they were. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday. And we'll see you next time. Peace.